In 2015, this was how most people moved in Lagos. You either fought for space inside a danfo, or you jumped on an Okada, hoping to get to your destination in one piece. For some, it wasn't a choice. It was survival. But somewhere, far from this chaos, two Nigerians were asking a different kind of question. They didn't choose this path because it was easy. They saw a broken system, one that felt too familiar and too painful to ignore. So they chose to build a better way.
So the question is, how did Ty and I meet? So Ty and I met at Sloan in grad school. I was working on something called Baby and Mama.ng, something along those lines. It was a e-commerce business focused on like children from ages 0 to 10 essentially, and being able to work with the journey. But I remember at the time I couldn't figure out how the hell to do how deliveries were done in Nigeria. It was a foreign concept to me. And I remember reaching out to a friend of mine, and his name is Benga Ige. He was an MBA Sloan at the time. And then he essentially was like, oh, there's this guy who just spent the summer working at Konga and helped them do this and all these really cool things. And he essentially told me about Ty and did the introduction. And the rest is history.
Because obviously when you're finishing grad school, you have student loans, right? So there's a bit of a financial, more than a bit of a financial pressure, but beyond that also is you're thinking about your career and what you do from here. But I think, building on sort of like what Chinedu said, we wanted to do something that had a bit of legacy in it, right? And we knew that, one, if we wanted to take a high risk trajectory, the time to do it was then, right? Because typically if you leave grad school and you go into consulting or the big tech companies, it's often a lot harder to, abandon that golden parachute or whatever they call it, and then go and take a high risk decision like building a company. So I think we both knew we wanted to build a high growth company that would solve a really important problem on the continent. And the time to do it was then. So obviously the mindset also is, if it doesn't work out a couple of years in, you could always go back and do something else. And that's the privilege that having an MIT degree gives you, right? Is whatever mistakes you make isn't really fatal. You always have options. So I think for us, it was very clear there was a big problem to solve. There was a big opportunity. There was also a strong desire to do something for our home continent. And given all the knowledge, the networks, the relationships, and access to funding that we had, right, by being in such a privileged environment, it just made sense for us to jump in and try to solve this big problem in mobility.
Also, right, the energy was incredible. First of all, my last semester at Sloan was dedicated to maths. I skipped most of the classes. I only went to go and do homework and turning stuff. And even all the professors where I was in their classes all knew that I was working on the project, because I told them, hey, sorry, I'm not going to be attending because I don't plan to go and work for McKinsey or Goldman Sachs or any of those people. I've already seen what I'm going to do, right? So I had a lot of their support and a lot of their backing, and it made that transition easy. But the energy was, was raw. I remember then there was about 8 of us then. It was me, Tayo, Yemi, this guy who's CTO now at Clever, George Ezena. There was this lady from Korea, I forget her name. She was in your year. And then there was I think another girl who was Michelle, who was an MIT undergrad student. It was a time of like learning. The energy was intense. It was very raw. I remember I hadn't done any coding for like the web. I had only worked in in an enterprise banking infrastructure setup. And in a week we had like an app up and running. We had, everybody had learned how to write Node.js, JavaScript, Angular. It was a very, very intense period. And I look back on it with fondness. So that Christmas, MIT gives you, they give you like 3 weeks holiday in December, and then they give you off the month of January to, go work and do whatever you want to do. So I spent that period in Nigeria working at a brokerage firm in Marina, And I decided to be using public transport everywhere because I couldn't figure out for the life of me why e-commerce was making sense in Nigeria, right? Why was it taking off? Why were there the Konga Jumia wars going on and all that kind of stuff? And it was a really interesting experience. I think for me, I lived in Badore, and I would like be hustling my big self inside Danfo to sit in front of the Danfo and all that kind of stuff. I remember I ripped a couple of suits. I think for me, getting home every day and being drained to the bone, I just didn't have the energy to go anywhere else. And for me, that was the moment, right? So I realized, I'm like, man, if people are going to work and are suffering like this, it makes perfect sense why everybody orders things in, because the additional stress of going out to order anything just doesn't make sense, right? And so I think that period while I was in Nigeria crystallized the opportunity for me. And by the time I was going back to the US, I had decided that this was what I was going to do full time. I thought the opportunity was very, very interesting. And I thought that, we were onto something that was really, really massive, and I was there for it.
Yeah, I mean, the original problem we set out to solve, interestingly, is still the same problem we're solving today. Just we've changed our strategy and our focus areas, but it's pretty much the same. And it is for the opportunity at the intersection of tech, mobility, and job creation, right? So obviously, at that point in time, we saw a tremendous opportunity to use technology to solve big problems across the continent. We know the trajectory that Africa has been on in the last 70 years. A lot of wars, coups, poverty, and so on. And the technology provided this hope, right? And a way out of all the crises that we had, witnessed growing up. So tech was definitely fundamental. The second was job creation. At the same time, we were aware of the huge youth population growth in Nigeria and many parts of the continent. And we knew that if we wanted, our countries to have a chance, we needed to figure out a way to create jobs at scale. So large-scale job creation for young people was very important. And then looking at the sector, right, we realized that mobility and transportation, right, made the most sense for us. Not just because of our skill set, but because every other sector you look at in Africa today, right, relies heavily on an efficient transportation and mobility infrastructure being built and put in place. And we saw a tremendous gap in there, right? So we knew we had to do something about mobility that was leveraging tech that would create a lot of jobs. And how we've done that has evolved, but it's still fundamentally the same problem we're solving today. How did we know we were getting traction, right? I think, of course, we did initial academic secondary research, and then we did primary research as well, talking to drivers. I think Chinedu, lost a few suits in the process of engaging those drivers. And then, of course, it was then time to launch. So we launched, right? Started working with those drivers directly. The initial versions of Max were focused on solving a problem that was important, but wasn't necessarily the most important problem for the drivers. And we learned that by engaging and talking to these drivers. And then after a while, 6 months in, 1 year in, we began to really fully understand what the most critical problem was for them, not just from our own perspective. And that's when we began to make those pivots, moving the business towards the direction that solved the most critical problems for the driver. So it was a process of discovery, of very intense engagement. I think when we started, I didn't know the first thing about how to ride a motorcycle. Our Chinedu didn't either. And then at some point we realized, no, we actually need to learn how to do this stuff, right? We can't actually be able to do what we don't know how to do. So we taught ourselves to ride a motorcycle, right? And then we learned all the parts, right? The sprocket and chain and every other part you can imagine on the motorcycle, we became very familiar with. And that allowed us to connect with the drivers at a much deeper level. And then the rest, as I say, is history.
So coming back to Nigeria in 2015 to start Max was a massive shock for me personally, right? I don't know if Tayo could tell, but I was really struggling. The Shege was a lot, right? Every night they took light. So every night between like 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., I had to get up in the middle of the night, or Tayo would get up in the middle of the night to go and turn on generator, right? Our office is smaller than every office that we have currently today in the Max office, right? But at the same time, for what it's worth, we weren't like paying a lot of money for it. It had been a favor by one of our friends of blessed memory, Bolaji Fini, who is also an MIT Sloan alumni. But like those early days were tough, man. I remember like we lived in a BQ, right? On one side was me and a bunch of like early staff who, you know, slept on the floor with like not on the floor but slept in like, the apartment with me. And on the other side was Tayo, his wife and his kids. I mean, you know, looking back on it, it's like, first of all, how the hell did he convince his wife to agree to that, right? And then more importantly, like we could not have predicted like the level of difficulty we would have experienced, right? To like build this and get it off the ground. But I think that's part of what we're also grateful for, because I think having seen some of that kind of stress, yeah, I'm just grateful that we're here, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, when I think about it as well, I'm like, did we really go through all that? You know, we were living in the same places as we were working. The office was like really tiny, but it was very exciting. There was very high energy. You know, we had this very strong sense of mission, but still, it was like very, very humble beginnings. And yeah, you know, here we are today. It's been quite a crazy journey.
Max Okada was more than just an app. It was a digital handshake between trust, safety, and speed.
So who made the dream team? I remember working closely with Tayo and Chinedu, of course, and then Patrick, Deolu, Tosin, Shola, Mr. Emmanuel, and Deji. A lot of them that I can't remember now, and some notable Max champions as well. What kept me going even when things seemed to be falling apart? I really loved working at Max. It was more the learning for me. I got to do work that I was proud of, and I could see the impact of my work, and that was very, very valuable.
The streets didn't care about pitch decks. The hustle was real. The team showed up day after day, rain or shine. From 20 bikes to hundreds and thousands of customers, Max Okada was working, and the people were witnesses. It happened. One decree, no warning. In one move, everything they had built was on the line.
Okay, yeah, I mean, in 2020 actually, we had an unexpected regulatory change that happened in our biggest market at that point in time, which was in Lagos. And then very quickly on the back of that regulatory change was also the onset of the COVID lockdown. So it was a double impact, as you might call it. Obviously, we had to make very rapid changes, notify our board and our investors and our shareholders, think about how to pivot, right? And pivot in this sense wasn't fundamentally just about the business model. It was about a geographic pivot. And if you know anything about a geographic pivot, it's very hard, right? Because now you're going to new locations, you know, you're looking for property, you're figuring out the customer profile in those new locations and all that.
It felt like the end, but it wasn't.
Right, so through the lockdown period, we were actually traveling, right? And we had to get all these special passes, because then you needed a special pass for you to be able to travel. And we were moving around. I think we even explored doing something in agriculture back then. Right, so, you know, we looked at a bunch of different things that we could continue to do, but ultimately it was still mobility. And I would say, you know, looking back, it was definitely a blessing in disguise, right? Because it forced us to think pan-Nigeria very, very quickly. And excitedly, you know, 6 months in, we already had a thriving operation in 2 other cities in Nigeria, in Akure and Ibadan. And eventually, of course, you know, we expanded to cover about 15 to 16 cities across Nigeria. But initially, you know, it was a massive shock. It was unexpected. And then we had to switch into crisis management mode, carrying all the stakeholders along, and everybody essentially looking to 2 of us for solutions, right? Like, okay, we are also looking for solutions here. So the pressure was real, but thankfully, you know, we were able to pull through, re-anchor the business across multiple geographies, and then, you know, it was escape velocity from that point forward.
I remember I was sitting in my office downstairs, I think I had been on a call. I don't remember what the call was about. But I mean, fundamentally, we were at that point, we were in a period where we were expecting, I think, about 4,000 new vehicles to come in, and they were at sea. And we'd meet like financial commitments, we'd work with like partners to make sure we had everything ready. We had the OEM in place. Everything kind of seemed like we had all our ducks in a row. And then I get a call from a reporter asking for my feedback on, what regulatory changes had happened. And I was excited. I'm like, oh, finally, the government is enforcing the law. Because according to the law, those regulatory changes would have helped our business. But obviously we came to see later in the day that the interpretation of the changes were actually different from how we had thought about it, and that it would have an adverse effect on our business, right? So I mean, I think initially the mindset was, oh no, we need to figure out a way to convince the government, convince regulators to change their mind and everything else. And I think within a week, we moved away from that mindset to more of a mindset of, all right, let's figure out how we work with these guys. Let's figure out how we make this work. And so rather than focus on pursuing what we thought was a futile goal, we instead focused on figuring out how to make a loaf of bread from half wheat and half rice, right? And luckily that worked out. We were able to essentially go back and figure out from talking to our drivers, talking to our customers, talking to our staff, what really mattered, right? Thankfully, we had like really great people. We were able to work with our teams at the time to like essentially do things like restructure incomes and like, furlough some contracts. I know that we took like massive pay cuts for that period. In fact, despite taking pay cuts, we did actually take an income for the next 6 months, right? Even though on paper we had taken pay cuts. What that really allowed us to do was, beyond obviously making sure we're managing cash flow for the business and whatnot, it also allowed us to share camaraderie with the rest of the team. Because I mean, for us, we have ownership is like the most important thing, right? And the way we come from philosophies where the captain goes down with the ship. So if things were tough, the business was struggling, we weren't going to protect ourselves at the detriment of our employees. And so we ensured that, we had to do some things around like, managing costs, managing contracts and whatnot. We didn't let go of anybody, but we worked with the teams and essentially negotiated furloughs for the meantime. And we took like the biggest cuts in the business because we wanted the team to also recognize that, while we say we are founders and we are leaders and whatnot, we lead from the front, not from the back, right? And so for the next 6 months, we didn't take a pay, focused on like optimizing, learning, making changes. And, we eventually figured out the foundation of what has become what we do today, right? Where we learned that fundamentally the drivers who work with us really work with us because they got access to a vehicle more than anything else. And that was their big priority. And so we then focused on, obviously, as a business, how do we essentially optimize the business to make sure that we're solving for the problem that the drivers find most valuable to them? And at the same time, how do we also make sure that we're able to return shareholder value, capture value for also our employees, and just be able to build a moat around that? What was the biggest lesson the pivot taught us about leadership? Two things can be correct, right? And it taught me to really learn to value people a lot more. And I'll give you the scenario. We'd come from a context where we've been primarily running a ride-hailing business, and given like the challenges we had seen, regulatory changes and all that stuff, we had a clear sense for where we needed to go. When we announced that to the rest of the business, all our managers revolted and pushed back. The feedback was like, no, why are we doing this? I mean, obviously they all publicly agreed, right? It's one thing to publicly agree, it's another thing for them to actually align and execute, right? And so while they publicly agreed, in private, they all came to us pushing back aggressively, right? This wasn't our identity as a business. We're primarily a ride-hailing business. Our infrastructure is built for ride-hailing. Our teams are built for ride-hailing. Everything's ride-hailing. And, they don't agree with this. They don't appreciate this. Essentially, it's not as interesting a business as far as they're concerned as what we were doing initially. Lots and lots of pushback. And the philosophy we asked our leaders to adopt at the time was one of disagree but align, right? It is okay for you to have a different opinion from me, right? But right now, part of what I need from you as my leaders in the business is to follow without asking questions for now. And after a particular point, let's begin to ask those questions again. one, getting the team to work with us to align was very, very critical, because without the leaders, without the team, we wouldn't have been able to successfully pivot the business in the way we did. Our teams aligned. I mean, I remember people like Ronke in the business, Bolahon, Mayowa. These were all people that we really, really respected and valued, but they had very different opinions from what we had, right? But somehow, and I'm still very, very grateful to them for how they worked with us through that period, they were able to put how they personally felt about the pivot to the side and worked with us to execute on the outcomes that we thought were necessary, right? And look at where we are today as a business. We've been able to navigate and make that successful. A lot of the businesses who couldn't pivot the way we did, most of them died, right? So looking back, we were proven right, but at the time, one of the questions were, we believed that yes, this was the right way to go, but there was no evidence that supported our position, right? So I think there's a founder's intuition that is also a bit challenging to explain oftentimes to a lot of other people, because there's vantage point differences, there's experience differences, there's also a difference in personal drive and things like that. Because for example, some of the things we were willing to do to make this opportunity work were things that I believe that only us could have uniquely done. Most other people may have been unwilling to do those things. And keep in mind that during this pivot, where we were pivoting to what we've become, we also, like Tayo said, dabbled in a lot of things. We did agriculture. We dabbled in agriculture briefly, where we were buying goods from markets and like exporting and stuff like that. We dabbled in online book e-commerce, where we worked with like a few writers who actually did their book launches, and Max was the platform to sell it. We dabbled in a regulatory product called MetroGov, where we were, and this MetroGov we poured ourselves. Tayo especially poured himself into this, right? Where we were going from state to state, meeting with like government commissioners for like finance, for tax, for all sorts of different things, and essentially working with them to try to convince them to leverage MetroGov as a product to be able to do their collections, do their driver monitoring, and all the other kinds of things. We dabbled in like food delivery. We had something called Max Eats, where we were, going out and doing deliveries for food and all sorts of different things. Until we realized that was a suicide mission. We worked with like restaurants to help them hire drivers for like a period of time. And then the restaurants quickly started hiring our drivers professionally off of us, and then putting us under pressure for those drivers not coming to work. It was a very interesting and honestly crazy period of time, right? But I think ultimately one of the big learnings was sometimes like the respect that I think that the respect that our teams had for us allowed them to trust our vision even when they disagreed with the vision, right? And we're very grateful for that. So I think there will be that conflict. And I think for other leaders who are going through changes like this, being able to build the trust that allow people to lead you, I think is very important for when you go through like difficult times like we did. That trust becomes the currency upon which you can essentially negotiate and bargain with your teams.
With Lagos shutting them out, Max turned towards the rest of Nigeria. A pivot was born from passengers to commercial riders, from ride-hailing to ownership.
There's one of my friends told me that they bring dispatch for this company, so you should come and try it, whether it's more better than the one that I'm doing before. So when I get there, I apply the first time. So the second time they called me that I should come for interview. I come for the interview. So I do the interview and I pass the interview. From there, they issue the bike from me.
They called it Ride Now, Pay Later, a subscription platform that gave riders the chance to earn and own.
When they started it, they started with salary. They are paying us salary. So later on, they can't change it to hire purchase. And the hire purchase, they give me the hire purchase, I pay it, and I pay complete. Now we'll be the first champion of the Max. That year, where we started from Yaba. From Yaba, we moved to Lekki for Kings Lemos. We moved from Yaba 2016 to Lekki 2017. From 2017, we moved here 2019.
So the question is essentially, how did I feel about seeing champions take ownership of their own vehicles full time, Lagos, other cities, and whatnot? And honestly, personally for me, it was a very deeply emotional thing, right? Because when we think about the journey of Max, for me, what about Max, beyond all the good things that we do that I personally really, really connect with, is the concept of delivering financial well-being to the commercial taxi drivers that we work with and support. I come from a family. My father is at the time was in the army. He's retired from the army now, but he runs his own private practice. My mom works for the government and all of that. And growing up, my parents essentially took care of everybody else's kids, right? Within like our own sphere, right? And they had, at least that I know of, 14 children that they were taking care of that didn't belong to them, right? And while for them, it has been a source of joy and personal fulfillment, I also recognize the amount of sacrifice it has taken for them to achieve that, right? So, and the about sacrifice is, for some, it can be a burden, right? I didn't want for that to be the experience that we would have. And I also, more importantly, wanted to build a system that alleviated families of this kind of stress, right? And so what we've done with Max, the philosophy around this, as far as Max is concerned, is ownership gives you a foundation for building wealth, right? So you own an asset, so you can sweat the asset, you can sell it, you can rent it, you can do all sorts of things with it. So I think for me, when I see drivers complete their contracts and take full ownership, it gives me specific joy, because I know that for them, this is the lowest that they can ever be. Moving forward, they own an asset, they can rent it, they can sell it, they can do all sorts of different things, and that cash will go on to do more for them. So, we've seen a ton of our drivers do things like complete their contract with us, sell their vehicles, get a ton of cash, and go start businesses for their families. We've also seen a lot of drivers take full ownership of their vehicles, rent those vehicles out, and come back to us to take more vehicles, essentially becoming a fleet manager on our platform, right? And so for me, I feel very fulfilled, right? I think honestly, this is part of the mission, right? So when we think about what Max is here to do, beyond all the visionary stuff that we're doing, the innovative stuff we're doing, at the core mission is delivering financial well-being for a lot of people, for like the drivers that we serve. And being able to transfer ownership to them, for me, is a specific source of joy for me, and specific source of fulfillment, and is a key reason why Max remains my life's work.
Now I'm not working with Max again, but because they give me a higher purchase, so I paid them, their money has finished. So now, as I paid their money finished, I make some money, I make big money. So I started another business. But now, the place that I am now, if no Max, where they give me the bag that time, I wouldn't reach where I did now.
The Max Advantage was more than just a package. It was protection, support, and a promise.
So here in Max, safety is number one for us. Among all the core values that we have, safety is the very first, and then it's always there with us in all our activities. We've been in existence as a brand, as a business for 10 years now, and at no point have we compromised safety. It's a difference between our riders and those other riders out there in the streets. It's our advantage, is the key thing for us. Apart from having safety as part of our core values, it is organic, it's embedded in people. They are practicing safety in the office, they are practicing safety on the road, they are practicing safety even in their homes. And that is one thing that you are sure of, that is distinguishing us from every other person out there.
So this is the lead generation and conversion department of Max. This is actually the first point of contact for every champion we've ever had. What we do here is to ensure that we give our customers or our champions a beautiful experience going through our pipeline conversion process, from where they are registered to where they have to submit the guarantors, to where they have to do their tests, because we test them, and then to when they actually pick up the vehicles.
Now, what excites me the most today is the fact that behind every line of code, behind every system that we build, is a group of very motivated and very talented individuals who wake up every day understanding that we're not just building software or just platforms. but we're changing lives and we're delivering value to our customers.
I mean, it's definitely how we've been able to tie a lot of technology around what we do, starting from the automated battery swap stations, which enables riders to swap in less than 2 minutes, and these swap stations are tied to IoT devices and internet devices that we can monitor what's going on at swap stations. We can see different battery state of charge, battery cell levels and cell disparities, and it helps us to be very proactive to manage our battery life. Also, I mean, the breakthrough moment is seeing how much money riders have been able to save compared to what they used to do before on the ICE vehicles that they had, because they don't have to break the bank to own an electric vehicle compared to what most people think. But it's pretty interesting to see.
Okay, so I mean, why did we introduce vehicle finance, right? Buy now, pay later, the BNPL model for vehicle ownership? I think it was fundamentally driven by what we learned talking with the drivers early on and seeing their behaviors and their own aspirations. As Stranger rightly mentioned, creating financial wellness and well-being, and ultimately helping our fellow Africans, find fulfillment in their work. We saw that very closely tied to that fulfillment was ownership. People want to have something that is in their names, right? Whether it's land, or whether it's a house, or whether it's a vehicle, something that has economic value. It's something that is at the heart of, or is something that is very important for the average African out there, right? Especially against the backdrop of poverty, right? The way you come out of poverty is owning something that is valuable. And we knew this as well by looking at the research, right? I think there's a Peruvian economist called Hernando de Soto who wrote a book called The Mystery of Capital. And one of the amazing things you learn from that is that ultimately your success, economic success in life, is very, very strongly correlated with how much capital you have access to. So if you're fortunate to be born into a household where there's already capital available, right, you can build on that. If you look at one of the richest African in the world today, richest black man in the world today, Mr. Dangote, he got a loan from his uncle. We heard the story of $500,000 Not today's $500,000 $500,000 like donkey years ago. So the question around is, okay, how do people succeed? Is it just purely because of their hard work? No, it's not. It's a combination of hard work and opportunity, right? And what continued to break our hearts, and a key driver of what brought us down was just seeing the vast amount of young Africans who just didn't have opportunity, right? And realizing that, okay, we could use technology to change the game, to create a much more level playing field for access to capital or access to asset ownership. And so we pioneered vehicle finance, and not only pioneered vehicle finance, we pioneered very aggressive and very radical vehicle finance. 0 down payments. So drivers on our platform were getting access to, when we started this, a motorcycle was about 250,000 naira, right? About $700. And it was unbelievable. Like initially, a few people thought it was a scam, right? That, wow, I can come and get an asset worth 250,000 naira with 0 down payment, and I have the flexibility of paying back as I am generating money. I'm like, yeah, too good to be true. But yeah, it was true, right? But obviously, what enabled us to do that was a crazy amount of innovation behind the scenes, right? We had to build extensive and elaborate technology systems, elaborate KYC systems, elaborate operations systems, elaborate integrations with law enforcement agencies. And I can go on and on and on and on about all of the innovations that we had to build to actually enable this. Of course, we got our fingers burnt initially. A few vehicles were stolen and all the normal stuff you expect. But eventually we got better at KYC, we got better at screening, we got better at enforcement, we got better at the technology platform itself. We went through a massive amount of evolution in the product design itself. And here we are, right? We are very proud, that we have created an opportunity for people to be able to access and acquire capital without any banking history whatsoever?
That was 2021. I think it was the second month I joined. We had these tricycles that we wanted to activate, about 65 of them. And okay, so normally back then, what we had Bodija and we had a Lele, and what we would normally do is that by the time we're done with onboarding the prospects, getting them to attend class and all of that, we send them up to LALA to go and get activated, and then all of us, we wrap up what we're doing. Then I'll load everybody in my beat up Toyota Corolla back then, and we drive down to LALA. Getting to LALA that night, we saw about 70 people waiting for these tricycles, and all of them started coming to us and started asking, which brand are they giving us? We heard that is the brand, is the new model Bajaj, I think R250, I'm not sure, that they'll be, and I kept telling them, hold on guys, you see the tricycles when they come out. And normally the warehouse is at the back and the activation point is in front, so they couldn't even see the tricycles until the VOBS guys started driving out the tricycles. Now, it was a magical moment. The moment those tricycles came out, all these people exploded. It was crazy. They started shouting. They started high-fiving each other. It's a moment that I literally captured in my mind. Like, I still remember that night. It was crazy. And instantly, one of them who, I don't know, maybe dude was a failed Fuji artist or is an upcoming Fuji artist, he instantly composed a Fuji rhythm, started thinking about Marx, started thinking about Tayo Bamiduro. Instantly, and some of them were even saying that, Tayo should come and contest for local government chairman. It was magical. That was one moment that made me look at it and say, man, this is more than a job. This is more than a startup. Another one I remember, that same year, went to bed around 12 midnight, around 2 a.m. My phone rings. I come out of my daze. I pick up the phone, and it is this prospect just crying and bawling on the phone. It took me the better part of 2 minutes to get him to calm down. What was the problem? He was driving a tricycle for someone. He started processing his own Max tricycle. The person he was driving for heard he was processing a Max tricycle, collected the tricycle he was driving from him, and unfortunately by the time he was done with his processing, we ran out of tricycles. So for the last 2 weeks, he had been without a tricycle. And because these guys rely on daily money, it was already hell at home. In actual fact, the moment I started speaking with him, I could hear his wife's voice in the background saying that he's a useless man, he's a never-do-well, blah, blah, blah. I had to tell him to put the wife on the phone. That night, I became a marriage counselor, spoke with them for almost 30 minutes. I had to beg the wife, explain our process to her as a company, and I had to assure her. She told me to swear that the man would get a tricycle within a week. Luckily, I was able to get the guy a tricycle. But that call that night totally shifted my perspective. This is not just a job. It's not just a startup. We're selling hope. We're selling dignity. We're helping families. We're helping people. It's totally shifted my perspective about this job.
From Ibadan to Osogbo, Ilorin to Gwagwalada, Lokoja to Onitsha, and Accra to Douala, the expansion was undeniable. It wasn't merely about strategy. It was driven by a profound sense of purpose and passion.
So at MAS, we offer vehicle subscriptions to our customers who are our champions. We ensure that these documents are valid to apply Lagos Road and ensure they are able to deliver their service to customers. The vehicle documents we give out includes vehicle license, acne permits, roadworthiness, emblem papers, and these documents allow them enables them not to be harassed by police or any other local government agencies that are outside enforcing the laws. So we also offer maintenance services to our champions, so that every time they are on the road, their vehicles are properly maintained and they are not constituting any nuisance at all.
In August 2020, Max boldly took a significant leap by introducing electric motorcycles to Nigeria. This move was a clear indicator that the future was not just approaching, it had already arrived in the world of mobility.
I think 2017-18, I went to China, then Chinedu, I think he went in 2019. And, we explored all of the innovation that was going on there, and it was crazy. And then we tested out some of the EVs, and the experience was completely transformational, right? And we knew that sooner than later, this technology would go fully mainstream. And not only the experience, but in terms of what it would deliver from a cost standpoint, from an affordability standpoint, we knew it was going to be a massive game changer. And if you think again about the kind of customers that we serve and our mission for Africa, right? We're trying to create prosperity, create jobs, create asset ownership. And part of that, of course, is also helping to optimize and reduce expenses and costs. And EVs fit very, very nicely into that, right? And so for us, it was a question of, is it fantastic technology that delivers transformational experience? Tick, yes. Does it significantly reduce cost and enhance affordability for our drivers? Tick, yes. And so the rest is history. Since 2019, laser focused on EVs, making sure we got to the right model, the right energy strategy to be able to drive it at scale. And then fast forward to 2022, we started deploying more in Ghana. 2023, we started deploying more in Ghana. 2024, we started deploying in Nigeria. And then 2025, we took off.
My name is Lawal Hayobami Joseph. I'm a Max EV champion. This is my bike. I've been riding with Max for 5 months. Why I chose to ride with Max is, having a bike that is eco-friendly, like no sound, you don't have to queue for fuel, even if there is fuel scarcity, you are not buying oil, it's one of the things that motivated me, and I was like, wow, I think I will have to ride with Max. I've used on a 4 bike, the normal bike that we use for our daily works, is one of the things that was like, what am I going to do to get out of this? And so when Max came with electric vehicle, I was happy.
The transition to electric vehicles has been a game changer, most especially from the POV of product marketing, because now we can empower more people, we can spread the message of Max, and also the advantages that comes with being a Max champion. Talking about free access to HMO, talking about free insurance, talking about flexible subscription plans, flexible installment plans, and so much more. The future indeed is green, and the future indeed is bright.
So to ensure that experience is seamless, is fantastic, we deployed quite a number of programs for our champions. That function in itself is subdivided into 3. We have 3 subunits: driver experience, field operations unit, and driver welfare. All right. So the academy is responsible for even before a champion becomes a champion, right from prospecting stage. Academy is responsible for ensuring that we have prospects that are very fit for purpose, and that is where the whole journey starts. We ensure that the right person with the right skill set, come to the system through our testing program that we have in place. So once that is done, activation happens, and that journey begins, and that's where the bulk of driver experience unit or function comes to play.
From the points where the vehicles are fully set up till where we get documentations for them, till where we get the vehicles assigned to the champions, we handle all of that in this warehouse. As of today, we have well over 500 champions activated with EVs. And right in this location, we have over 2,000 EV bikes in this warehouse, fully assembled and ready to go out.
I've been riding with Max now for about 7 months, and it's been a great experience, I can say. So I joined Max because it was a better option for me to get a bike at that point in time, because the cost of bikes are way off the charts. And the Max EV platform gives you an opportunity to actually get this bike and pay gradually as you go over the course of 1 year, 6 months. So it was a really good advantage for me at that point in time, and I took it.
Max didn't just adopt electric, they led with it. Cleaner, quieter, cheaper, and fully African.
Real growth in Africa is deeply human. It's the woman in Ibadan who has doubled her earnings. It's the father in Accra who also is able to earn consistently because operational costs are deeply reduced when using EVs. For us at Max, growth is more than metrics and dashboards. It's the economic inclusion that we bring to the table. In Africa, real growth is the shift from surviving to actually thriving.
So far, the experience with the Max team has been good. They have a very good customer care and welfare service.
Some of the benefits that I enjoy from Max is the HMO aspect. For we that we are champions, wow, I'm just so happy.
And the Max welfare team has been really good. I mean, quick response, you call and they actually there to answer you to give you any solution to your problems you have. And you can't beat this. Free maintenance literally almost every month, which is actually awesome for me. I don't really have to pay nothing. And the maintenance of the bike is really easy. The only thing you need to worry about is probably the chain and the handbrakes. Besides that, you're good.
They ensure they do their maintenance as at when due. Also, the renewal of vehicle documents, they don't joke with it. So it's one of the things that gets us, moving.
Accessibility drives skill. Pursuing accessibility allows us to grow the pie. When you grow the pie, you're in a much stronger position to return value to shareholders, to investors, and to build a much, much bigger and much more profitable company, right? So I think driving access to sustainable transport, everybody wins, right? You have more drivers who can make money, you have more drivers who can own vehicles, you have more drivers who can provide for their families, able to access health insurance and all the other products that we offer on our platform. More importantly is you build a bigger business, right? You do more in revenue, you have happier investors, and you're financially better off. Not just you, but your teams as well.
This is the bold vision of our future, built and powered by Africa. And this is just the start.
Hope, fulfillment. So when we talk about financial well-being as what we deliver to drivers, right? Despite us being a mobility company, right? There's a bit of a context to that. So if you look at the way poverty breaks down and destroys people, poverty dehumanizes, right? It makes you seem like less to others. People don't pay as much attention to you. You begin to also question your value as a human being. And that is destructive for people in multiple ways. And if you look at what a lot of African countries are dealing with, it's called multi-dimensional poverty, right? Multi-dimensional poverty is as destructive as it gets. If you look at some of the driver training programs we run today, we do a lot of stuff around like financial literacy, we do stuff around like safety driving, we do stuff around like customer engagement, customer service. We actually are trying to build these drivers to be better people, right? And so we want the drivers to, when they work with Max, to feel inspired. We want the opportunity to feel aspirational for them. Because at the end of the day, when they complete their contracts with us, what we want is that the driver who comes out at the other end is orders of magnitudes better in every metric than the driver who first joined the Max platform.
Hope is such a powerful thing. Hope is why you keep living, or is why life continues to be worth living, right? If all hope is gone, then life is worthless. People take their lives when they think there's no more hope, right? So hope is everything. And why do Nigerians, a lot of Africans, why are they very excited when they get a visa to a Western country? It's because that visa it represents opportunity. It represents hope that I can rise beyond my family background or my history, right? I can access new opportunities. So very tightly linked to hope is opportunity, right? They are together. At the end of the day, as a people, we have to take ownership for creating hope for our people. Because, how many Nigerians are going to get visas, right? To go to quote unquote other more prosperous countries. And so therefore we cannot rely on visas to give us hope. We have to create that hope in our own country. And what we are doing at Max, right, is a powerful channel for us to unlock hope for a lot more people than any country could give visas.